this thing on.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of The Cut. I'm your host, Christian Williams, and I am here, as always, with Randy Hall. Randy, how are you?
Doing pretty good, man. Possibly looking at moving here the next month or so some exciting stuff. But, that's not football. So
It's true. We're going to need to figure out our draft plans, though. This is throwing a nice little whirlwind into the NFL draft, so we'll see though. Who knows? We last year, for those of you who don't know, we streamed for 4 hours day one and I believe 4 hours day two, and it was a crazy time and it was a good time. And the only reason we got off after 4 hours on day two was because I think StreamYard kicked us out, so we would have kept going, I think so. All right, guys, we're here to talk about the New York Giants this evening. The New York Giants are going through a lot of change, so this is going to be a fun episode. If this is your first time joining one of our Friday Fix episodes, we go through the GM and coaching situation, the current cap situation, and kind of pending free agents, offseason moves that we would do, and then also a 5-round mock draft, which is a lot of fun this time because of the 2 first-round picks and an early second-round pick. So let's get into it. So first of all, the general manager that is taking over for Dave Gettleman, the old Gettleman, is Joe Schoen. Randy, tell me about Joe Schoen.
Honestly, wasn't quite sure that's how that was pronounced, so that's fun.
I looked it up the other day. I promise.
It's a weird thing. I don't know.
It's a weird one. Yeah.
But he's been a scout and an executive in the league for 20 years now. Started with the Panthers, then the Dolphins. Then the last 5 years before this, he was the assistant GM of the Bills. Said to be a crucial part of their draft process and partial credited for all of their selections, including Josh Allen and everyone else, and trading for Diggs and all of it. So how much you can really take from that, we don't really know. But yeah, that's about it. I mean, he hasn't had a draft yet. He hasn't been a GM yet, so there's no credit to him necessarily. You can say that all the best picks from the Dolphins, Bills, and Panthers from the last 20 years are partially because of him, but there's no real way to tell that.
Yeah. I will say, I mean, even if he wasn't the sole responsible person for some of those Panthers teams, in living in North Carolina, the main thing when this whole regime kind of went up to Buffalo, Carolina fans were upset because this was a smart regime. They put together really good teams, and I think that followed him wherever he went. So while we can't put like a ton of credit on just him, solely him, I think that being in that environment is helpful in itself, and trying to bring like that Buffalo turnaround to the New York Giants is kind of crucial for where the Giants currently are, right?
Yeah, and maybe it says, there's no way to tell 100%
right
who was who, but the theory would be that he was a huge proponent of bringing Josh Allen in over the rest of the quarterbacks. So maybe that's part of the reason that they're keeping Daniel Jones, because they see similar stuff there. I doubt it, but it shows that he's at least been part of getting one quarterback right. I would argue 2 with Cam. Dolphins, I don't,
yeah,
nothing. I mean,
yeah,
if he was there for
Tua,
if he was there for, what is that, Tannehill, I think that was a good pick. So
not for the Dolphins, for the I guess, yeah.
Well, if the Dolphins would have built
years.
a better team and kept him around, who knows? But
that's true. Yeah. So after Joe Shane, obviously, I think that was the order, right? Joe Shane was hired and then Brian Dable.
Yes.
Okay. So Brian Dable is the current head coach of the New York Giants. He is following Shane over from Buffalo. Obviously, we know that he has been the Bills' offensive coordinator for the last 4 years. Randy, tell me a little bit more about his background, though.
Yeah, so he started as a Patriots coach at different positions uh, from 2000 to 2006, and then he went to be the Jets quarterback coach from 07 to 08, the Browns OC from 09 to 10, Dolphins OC in 2011, Chiefs in 2012. Then he went back to the Patriots from 2013 to 2016. In total, he's part of 5 Patriots Super Bowl teams. And then after that last stint with the Patriots, he went to Alabama to win a national title, possibly 2, from 16 to 17, and then became the Bills' offensive coordinator, and has really reinvented that team and that offense. I would say a lot of that due to Josh Allen, and I think a lot of good coaching from Brian Dable and structuring an offense around a quarterback as opposed to other stuff. You could tell from his backgrounds for being an OC at different places that he is definitely more of a run first guy, I think. And he completely abandoned that to go with the quarterback and the best scheme possible for the Bills this last year and the last 4 years, or at least 3. Uh,
Yeah.
and it's worked out for the best. So I think he'll be able to really exemplify the strengths of whatever team they bring. I don't think he's viewed as one of the best offensive coaches in the league. I'll say that, especially offensive coordinators. Um, but there's still question marks. No one's a perfect coach. There's mistakes here and there. Sometimes you get out coached. Sometimes you just get outplayed. So I would say that he did a terrific job against even his last game as the Bills offense coordinator against the Chiefs. Killed it clearly,
Yeah.
but they just didn't have a chance to finish. So,
Yeah. See, I'd push back on that though. That first half was rough, and it
but
was a conservative game plan, I think, to try to kind of minimize mistakes. But I don't know, he had Josh Allen, and he kind of just ran him on like QB power a lot. Which, again, you're right though, because he built that running game even around Josh Allen, which is a good thing. That is a good thing for everyone.
honestly, thanks for the transition because I also have on here help to develop Allen and come up with different schemes for different opponents and show
Right.
ability to adapt mid game, which is exactly what he did
Yeah.
against the Chiefs, where he did have a more conservative hold on to the ball, keep it out of Mahomes' hands. They said, "Fuck it, we're just dueling,"
Yeah.
and they exploded. And so did the Chiefs, and obviously the Chiefs won. But holy fuck,
Yeah.
did that offense turn it on down the stretch?
Yeah.
Uh, and I obviously most of the credit I would say to Josh Allen, and I guess Gabriel Davis to an extent, but Dable obviously has a big hand in that. So I don't know if this is the reinvention of Daniel Jones to make him a passable quarterback. I think there's a chance, but more realistically, they ride this out, don't spend a lot, get some foundation picks in here, and then go for your guy next year, kind of thing. But there's a chance, and maybe he can reinvent the wheel on Saquon Barkley as well, who's been underwhelming for 3 years. Most of
Yeah.
those due to injury, but still been underwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the key is we
Maybe
need to
they'll throw
remember.
maybe they'll throw to Kenny Galladay for once. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Probably not because he can't get open. And Daniel Jones, I just want to put out here, Daniel Jones is not a good quarterback, but he's also a better quarterback than what we've seen in the last 2 years, I think. I think their owner hit the nail on the head when he said that we kind of set this guy up to fail, and that's what he's done. He has failed pretty tremendously, but he does have some of that athleticism that made Josh Allen so good early on that I think that maybe starting clean with a Dable scheme may be good for him. I don't
Yeah.
want you guys to take this as Christian saying that Daniel Jones could be good because he's not gonna be good. I just don't know that they're gonna be bad enough to go up and get one of the top 2 quarterbacks, which is I think what Dable and Shane will want is
Well,
Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. So
if you do good enough in this draft, you can mortgage the future after this, though. So
that's true.
But I will say in Daniel Jones' defense, besides injuries and accuracy, I would say he the rest of his, I mean, like the main part of his game, accuracy and turnovers, and he corrected at least to some extent the turnovers this last year. If he could get even half of the jump that Josh Allen did in accuracy, which I doubt he does, but if it's the coaching that does it, he'll be a passable quarterback for this team.
Yeah, for sure. All right. That's probably good enough on the GM and coaching situation. We need to talk about their cap space though, because Shane is being dealt a really, really tough hand, but there are some solutions to some of their problems. So uh, their top 51 number is negative 12 million, $19,000 and $19,020, right? That's how you
Yeah.
would read that. Yeah. So not good. In the red, 12 million. But Randy, talk to me about some of the key free agents and kind of how they'll fix this.
Oh yeah, so for me, I would say they're key free agents. I would start with Jabril Peppers, kind of the quarterback of the defense, and then Reggie Ragland and Will Hernandez, probably their best guard. Evan Ingram, the perennial athletic tight end that can't catch a ball, and Billy Price, who was their starting center this last year. But besides that, Nate Solder was their long-term left and right tackle. I think he's gone. Lorenzo Carter, Danny Shelton, so they need a new nose tackle. Keon Crossan, Dante Pettis, okay. CJ Pollard, Corey Cunningham, Jalen Smith, who actually arguably was their best linebacker this last year after he was picked up from two different teams, I think. Casey Kreider, Bernard McKinney, Elijah Penny, Nate Ebner, Mike Glennon, Levine Toliolo, John Ross, Austin Johnson, and then restricted free agents, Jerron Williams and Jake Fromm, who I think probably stick around. But for me, I think Jalen Smith, Billy Price, Ingram, Peppers, Hernandez, and Ragland would be their biggest free agents.
Yeah. Yes. Now, of course, being 12 million in the hole, they can't sign any of them currently. So,
No.
how do you think that they will go about kind of freeing up some space?
Yeah, so it's going to be a combination of restructuring and cutting players. Shane actually has come out multiple times over the years and said he's not really a big fan of the whole restructuring process. So while I think it is an option, I don't think it's like a sweeping restructuring kind of thing. Maybe one guy to clear it over the cap. I will say though, so they are 12 million over the cap right now, but next year I think they're like 90 plus million under the cap. So the restructures and different signings and stuff like that, you really don't want to fuck with that number because this year's retool, figure out Daniel Jones, rebuild after if it doesn't work. And to rebuild, you need that kind of money. So the top restructure targets for me are James Bradbury, the corner, all pro corner. A lot of people are thinking he might be a cap like cut casualty because he has a $12 million number. Blake Martinez, their best linebacker, and it's kind of shown he's worth like at least close to the money that he's made. But he had an early ACL tear this last year, and new regime maybe move on kind of thing, or just restructure to keep him along and get under the cap that way. Kenny Galladay, big contract last year. I mean, if you don't think he's worth all that money, maybe just prorate it into a bonus to get it off the cap number. And Leonard Williams is the last big contract they can really do anything with. But the real cut candidates, starting off first, easiest one, done and done. Kyle Rudolph, $5 million, gone.
Yeah.
Sterling Shepard, the ever injured productive slot. If you do a post June 1st cut, it's $8.5 million. Those two cuts alone get you $1.2 million in cap room. So those two are gone.
Yeah.
Just plain and simple. TJ Brunson's really a reach of a pick when they made him. He hasn't done anything. It's only $874K though, so at a point, unless you really need that extra money to re-sign someone, I don't think you cut him. Blake Martinez, you could actually clean cut him for $8.5 million. But yeah, like I said, he was really their best linebacker, so I could see either a cut to just reinvent the whole linebacking room, or a restructure to not reinvent the wheel this year, but do it in the future. Their punter, Riley Dixon, is $2.5 million cut free. And then James Bradbury, if you cut him, you get all 12 million back. So they could just reinvent the wheel, but I don't think they really do that.
Yeah, so I do want to mention, cutting James Bradbury feels like it has to be off the table. He's just too good for them to just say, you're going to be a cap casualty. But I did want to mention that there have been some trade rumors, and a lot of people think that he is going to be a player that they look to offload in some way if they can't get a restructure done, which if I'm him, I mean, he was one of the best corners in the league over the last 2 years. I think I would argue he's a top 10 corner in all of football. And so if I'm him, I'm not really looking to restructure. I'm saying I want my money. And so we could have like a Xavier Howard type of situation that we had last year, where Xavier Howard wanted a bit of a raise. In this case, I don't think Bradbury is going to be looking for that or a restructure to get more money up front or anything like that. But I do think that he would refuse a restructure, and therefore they may have to trade arguably their best player on either side of the ball. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but I mean, Bradbury is good. He's a lockdown CB1, which that was the question coming in with him when they gave him this deal was, is he just a CB2? Is he really worth that money? And he's shown that he is. So that's where I think I think that would be like a last ditch effort if they really need to clear some cap.
Yeah, I think maybe you restructure him to prorate some of it like the other guys, but I just don't get cutting him because really he's kind of like your cornerstone. So
right,
there's not much else, especially if you're going to most likely lose Julius Peppers. Not Jabril Peppers, not Julius. You already lost Julius Peppers because he never played there. But Jabril Peppers is gone, so you really don't have any. I wouldn't call Blake Martinez like a true blueprint of the defense. I don't think any of the edges are there yet from last class. So he's really the only piece you got.
Yeah, for sure. I think Xavier Mckinney might be in that conversation next year, but he wasn't.
Maybe. I think he really got more playing time because of the injury, though. And I think he used it to Jabril. So I think he really stood out. But now that he is the guy, I think we'll see more.
He was a guy that we liked that draft class too. So, okay. So let's talk through some team needs before we hit up our free agency, because clearly, if you guys have followed along for the last 5 minutes, there won't be too many free agents going to the New York Giants this year. It's just not a feasible plan for them. Even if they cleared all this cap, there's really no point in dishing out a lot of money based on the cap number for 2023. So,
and arguably their biggest position of need is just retooling the entire offensive line. And there's so many teams that are looking to do that this year. You're going to get into a bidding war, and you're not going to be able to do much. So it's not a great idea.
Right. So team needs. We kind of bumped offensive tackle up after I made the graphic here. So
we can keep the graphic. I was just gonna. I did it for my own. Sorry.
Yeah. So walk me through these. How would you order the ones that are here? So for those who are listening in podcast form, edge, wide receiver, linebacker, offensive tackle, interior offensive line, cornerback, quarterback, tight end, running back, safety. How would you order those?
Yeah, I would order offensive tackle, edge, because I think they did a good job of getting edge pieces this last draft, and I think like Azeez Ojulari could be a stalwart for your edge class for the next 10 years, but I think you really need like if only because they picked twice so highly, I think you can get a top edge to be your edge number one for the next decade. So I have that still up there. Linebacker, there's so many questions with the linebacking room right now, so I think that has to be high. Corner, again, you have really one corner you trust. Wide receiver, we're talking about cutting a perennial starter for them. Interior offensive line, still dog shit. Quarterback, maybe in the second round there's a guy there they really like, and they just take the shot for the future. Tight end, you're cutting you're cutting Kyle Rudolph. There's
Rudolph.
no question. And Evan Ingram's gone, so those two. Your starting two tight ends are gone, so you need to replace that. But it's not a premium position. You could do with some minimum signings to really get along for the season, so it's not that big a deal. Backup running backs and maybe a running back of the future as a not necessarily Saquon replacement, but a Saquon filler, I guess, for the future, possibly until you get someone else. And then safety. They have two safeties they really like, but you need depth.
Yeah, so the other we mentioned Xavier McKinney, also Logan Ryan played a lot of snaps for them. I believe he was like third or fourth on the team in snaps. So Jabril obviously is always hurt. That was kind of Jabril Peppers' thing throughout his career. And Ryan played okay. I don't think he's great in coverage. There's also Julian Love. Sounds right. That they drafted him like 3 years ago. He was a corner at, I believe, Notre Dame, and then they transitioned him to safety immediately, and he plays okay. And so I think they have enough in their safety room. I think you're right. But adding to the room, it's not like those guys are blowing anyone out of the water with their play. So I agree.
Yeah.
I think tackle and interior offensive line for me would actually bump up first and second. But it's splitting hairs.
Yeah, so quickly, they're mostly for the year. Their star offensive line was Andrew Thomas, Matt Skora, Billy Price at center, Will Hernandez, and Nate Soldier. 3 of those guys are free agents, and your backup left tackle is also free agent. So they definitely need to figure that out. They don't have, in my opinion, anyone in-depth pieces that are even capable of being a starter this next year at least. So they really need to completely retool that and or try to bring someone back to help that. But they have a good amount of starters that are going to be gone.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go to our free agent acquisitions, and I'll just start because if you guys are watching, I just wrote roster fillers. That's the thing. We're not going to see them make any marquee signings. We're not going to see them make any splash moves here in Shane and Dable's first year. And I think they're doing a pretty good job of kind of eluding those types of questions. I don't think that anyone's really grilling them because most people understand that they're not going to be able to do that. I did want to give a couple examples of guys that I would look at. And really, I'm looking at some older veterans. They're going to need pieces to get on the field. I know they want to play their younger pieces, but for example, last year, Justin Houston, the Ravens took a shot on him. He probably earned a little bit of money, but he's still 34, I believe, is how old he is. Old edge rusher, and you want to bring him in as an idea or as an ideal mentor for.
It's an idea.
It is kind of just an idea. But you want to bring him in as a mentor maybe for the edge rusher that you're about to draft, and also Azeez Ojulari and some of those other young pieces. Who's the kid out of freaking Miami that I can't think of? Quincy Roche.
Yeah.
So I bring in an older edge rusher to kind of mentor those guys and maybe be a player coach type of deal. And then Houston still has some. And then Latavius Murray, just because, I don't know, old, cheap, need some running back depth, just rock with it.
Yeah, 100%. They don't have a backup running back that I care about. So, yeah, makes sense. And then I just have them bringing back 2 key pieces from last year's team. Billy Price, 2 years, $7 million. Pretty much just lock him up to be your center for just this next chapter while you work to get a center of the future. And then Jalen Smith, I think he earned a couple-year deal, 2 years, $5 million. Nothing big. Just these are very small deals. But bringing back Jalen Smith allows you to just completely not necessarily reach to get a new linebacker in the room, but pick one that you like at value this year because you're going to have 3 or 4 in the room that can at least play while you get someone else in to be possible piece of the future. And he was probably their best, ironically, cover linebacker last year, as well as the blitzing linebacker. So he's got some versatility for the team as well.
Awesome. All right, man. You ready to dive into these mock drafts?
Yeah.
All right. You're up first.
Okay, so I stayed pat with all the picks. Just point that out first.
I did
Draft
not.
started off with Evan Neal going out the board, and the Jets picked Iki. So I want Charles Cross here at 5. Obviously, I think, Thibodeau being there and other edges and corners and stuff being there is a good pick. But with the Panthers coming up right behind you, and you don't know what they're going to do necessarily, where if they're going to pick there or whatever, I'm taking the tackle to make sure that they don't get it before me. Charles Cross, there's some weight and strength concerns with him and others, and some technical stuff, but I think he can easily slide in to be your right tackle day one. And I think you then have bookend right tackles while you figure out the fucking rest. Uh, but at that point, I have the starting tackles and my starting center. Uh, so I need starting guards left, unfortunately. Um, and then at 7, Kayvon Thibodeau is still there. So I took him. I think they either go for a corner here or maybe receiver to replace, but I doubt it. I wouldn't be shocked if they took a reach at one of these guards necessarily here. But I went with Thibodeau. I think he was the best edge on the board, clearly for me at 7. And he fits the scheme where he can be a little bit of everything. I think he would be an actual edge, not an outside linebacker for this team. But I think he could really thrive in this environment while they take away other stuff and give you a more pure speed rush on the other side, where Thibodeau is a little bit of everything, but does win a lot with his speed. But if you can get some guys to just push the pocket in the middle, you could really win on this defensive line. And then follow that up with Kaiir Elam. This pick 36, corners, there's like 4 or 5 that could be there. I went with Elam here. He's the guy that doesn't get talked a ton about. He's the guy that could be flying up boards from the combine and also could fly off the boards from the combine. People are very up in the air to see where he's going to test at different things. So I'm really curious, honestly, to see his 40 numbers and all that stuff. So I hope he tests because that might drop him down to the bottom second or third. But I think he's a really competitive corner and could be a perfect cornerback too for this team. Followed it up with a starting guard in Dylan Parham from Memphis. Very aggressive, very good in the run game. I think he could easily start day one for this team. I think they're going to look to have a veteran guard on this team as well, which they already kind of have in Scora. I forgot about him, honestly, but he's a rotational center as well. So I think at this point, you at least have a starting line and you could figure it out past then. But yeah, it's a good part so far. Any comments on the first 4?
Yeah, I mean, with Elam, I think I saw a comp for him, and I started to think about it. Carlton, what's that?
I said, oh no, comps are always,
I know. Carlton Davis is the comp.
Yeah.
And his film is very, very similar to Carlton Davis's college film, but I am really low on Elam. I think that, you know, he's got the athleticism, and that's clear, but technically, with his actual technique and things like that, I don't think he's there yet. But athletes are athletes win at the position. Athletes,
Yeah.
you need athletes at corner. This makes sense too. He's kind of a bigger body, and you could toss him
Yeah.
opposite Bradbury, and that would be kind of nice. So I like that pick actually.
Yeah, he's never going to go up against the one if you keep Bradbury too, and he can continue to learn. Bradbury will teach him,
Yeah.
especially how to use that frame really well. And a lot of the times, I don't know if it was just the mock drafts. I did like 3 or 4 to get this. That's what I usually do to kind of get a mixture. The corners are coming off the goddamn board. It was either
Yeah.
Elam or Gordon, and and Gordon was only there for like one of them. So I was like, you know what, I'm doing Elam. I'm just sticking with it because it seems like Gordon might be a little bit too rich or too late, even though I think
Yeah.
it's 36 pick. That's basically a first round pick. So, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
The other note, I'm sorry. I was gonna say, if Gordon isn't there, then I think McDuffie is. I don't think both of them go in the first
yeah.
round, but I don't know that McDuffie really fits the scheme that they're gonna be trying to run. So I mean, perhaps, but yeah, the corners are gonna fly off the board. So we might see another like early second round run. So that makes sense too.
Yep. All right. And then following up that offensive line pick, I got your tight end replacement here and Jeremy Rucker, kind of an in between of Kyle Rudolph and Evan Ingram, at least what they produced for this team this last year. He's very, very good. He is an. Uh, I haven't done the tight ends yet, but I think he's easily going to be a top 2 blocker at the tight end position. So I think
Top
he
one.
really. I know I'm giving myself the leg room here, bro.
Top one.
He is absolutely dominant. He dominated Karlaftis at different times against Purdue this last year. I think he really exceeds at the next level with that. So he's never going to come off the field because he also has some strong and soft hands. We've seen him make some ridiculous catches. It doesn't even seem like he's looking at the ball. But I think he really can thrive in this scheme as well as just be your guy to really, get you through the next level. I think off the top of my head, like he could at least be. I mean, I'd say he's more athletic than they had in Shockey back in the day, and Shockey was a good blocker. So I think this is your heir apparent to that. That's definitely not the comp I'm giving him right now, but just saying, like, the Giants blue, you can get a guy that it's kind of the same kind of play style where he's going to go out and win at the catch point and get open with some pretty good route running, but he's also going to do the damage in the blocking game. So he's going to be a key piece for this team. And then I took a shot at a linebacker, Brandon Smith, in the 4th round, the linebacker from Penn State. He is ultra athletic. He is good in coverage. He misses some tackles. Those are his 3 points. I think he had like a 15% missed tackle rate this last season. Not good. It doesn't seem like a lot. It's kind of a lot. But that's why I don't think I think he could go in the 3rd round, but I think that kind of stuff might drop him down to the 4th. And for that, you could take an upside shot here. The linebackers in their room, especially if they bring back Martinez, those are guys that are going to be in the box and tackling. Smith can do that, and he can learn from guys that are very consistent tacklers, and he can be your cover backer on passing down. So I think it's a solid group pick for that linebacker room that really needs to be retooled. And then I took a shot at a receiver, Romeo Dubs, the 5th round, wide receiver from Nevada. I think he's a developmental kind of outside receiver, I would say. I think he can kind of do a little bit of stuff, but for this team, I mean, if you're cutting Sterling Shepard, you took Tony really early. You have Kenny Galladay is making a ton of money, and then you have Slayton. I mean, that's a good room. I think those 3 are your starters clearly, and he's only going to rotate in and hopefully learn. Maybe he can replace one of those guys in the future. Obviously not Tony, but it's an upside pick. Once you get to the 5th round, the receivers are literally all upside or they have injuries. Just because I think they're flying off the board this year. There's some depth there, but I mean, the guys Calvin Austin, I don't think is on the board in the 5th round. Maybe Justin's Ross, maybe Justin Ross, just because of the injuries. But medicals will tell us all that. We need to know. Dubs didn't have a really good Senior Bowl, so I don't think he's moving up the boards. And then finish it off in the 5th round with Thayer Munford, interior lineman from Ohio State. He had some versatility at Ohio State. I think that's going to really be a good point for him. He's not one of the best guards in this class, but I think he's easily a backup flip-flop rotational guy that could probably play a little bit of center as well. And honestly, with his size in a pinch, could play a little bit of tackle from an injury. So I think it's a good depth piece when, again, I don't think their depth is startable. So adding to that depth on the offensive line is a smart move.
Yeah. We also have to remember that he did play left tackle last year, and he was okay.
That's why I wasn't trying to give him the boost for it.
And they moved him to guard, and I immediately said, this is really going to help his draft stock, but then he didn't really play all that well in 2021, so it really didn't. But that's him learning a new position too, so take it with a grain of salt. I think he'll be a good rotational piece, like you said, a good depth tackle that'll stick around the NFL for a while, and in the 5th round, that's kind of just what you're hoping for. And for this team, I mean, maybe that's a starter in year 1. Unfortunately,
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Like, if you couldn't bring back Price and you're starting Skora at center, because obviously he's a center that played guard, because Price was better than him at center this last year. If
Yeah.
you do that, uh, you know, you already have a starting guard earlier in the draft. Maybe Munford does enough that you're confident enough to, you know, put Skora in at center, or in the pinch where Price gets hurt or Skora, I think he could easily step in. In my opinion, I think he's perfect for their team for injuries, because I think he could play all both tackle spots and both guard spots, at least to
Yeah.
a passable extent early in his career. I think he could play some center. I'm just not confident in it. But if you bring back Price, you have two centers on the roster that both are starting. So
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's such a gross offensive line to even talk about though, because like Price is
well,
not that good. Skura is not that good. It's just an
no,
unfortunate situation.
but it would not be it wouldn't even be bottom 10 offensive line in the league if you had Andrew Thomas, Skora, Price, Parham, and Cross. I mean, that's at least top
That's
22, at least top 20. Like,
it's very true. That's very true. Also, my last note before I talk through my mock, which it includes some trades, and so I had a little fun with it. But Romeo Dubs, to me, is like you said, developmental for sure. He's a strange evaluation though, because at the Senior Bowl, he was one of the fastest dudes out there, and he
really.
doesn't really look like that on tape, and he really doesn't have the ability to separate, especially against press. And so I don't know what his outlook is, but a day three wide receiver, you hit with Darius Slayton on day three, so you're kind of just hoping. Well, they didn't hit, but they have the guy. That,
Well, into that exact point, like, I mean, arguably, if the speed starts to show up on like film and practice, like, I agree, his film and what I saw at the Senior Bowl, like, I saw the speed like on like one-on-ones, but like during the game, I was like, what the fuck is he even playing? Like there are different parts. It was just like, is he even out here? He's not winning anywhere. He's got his quarterback and he's not winning. What the hell's going on? It was just awkward. But if he can just work on, honestly, if he could just work on the deep route, he could be a replacement for Slayton when the contract's up.
Yeah, which is next year after
Yeah,
this
exactly.
upcoming year. So yeah, it's a good pick. All right, I'm gonna go into mine, and mine's gonna take a while, so bear with me. First of all, I traded back.
Yeah.
So
So go over the
go ahead.
trade, and I'll tell you how much cap you just probably saved, because I looked it up.
Okay, that's fantastic. I didn't even think that through. So I traded back from 105, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
105 to 108. I got the 43rd pick as well, and I also, because I didn't think that that would be enough, even though what the simulator gave me was just those two picks. I also took a 2023 fourth round pick because I'm greedy. So went down three spots. And how much cap did I save, Randy?
Yeah, so just from the first round picks, just according to last year's numbers, Chase got a $30.8 million contract, and JC Horn at 8 got 21 million. So it's about 9 million just there. Um, and cap goes up, these picks get more money each year. So if we're just going 9 million, you add in the extra pick in the second round, conservatively 5 to 7 million you save just by trading back and getting more picks. Uh, I mean, that's smart. That's just smart
Yeah.
business, especially with this cap number. It's not going to help you off the top. Like, obviously, you won't have that number when we're in free agency, but once the season's going and once we're after the draft and you filled all these holes and you still know what you need to get in from a veteran standpoint, and maybe just competition, maybe it is the offensive line, maybe it's linebacker, corner, you have extra money to play with. So I didn't trade, but after you did it, I was like, shit, with that money, they probably should have, shouldn't they? Like
Yeah,
exactly the trade you did too, where it's not moving, but it's moving.
right. Well, here's my argument, right? There's there's bound to be teams with this edge rusher class specifically, because that's so the Falcons came up to get Kayvon Thibodeau at
Yeah.
105, which makes some sense because every team up there is going to be looking to get an edge rusher. We know this. The edge rusher class is fantastic. But if if I'm Joe Shane and I say, well, the difference between Karlaftis and Thibodeau is worth adding an extra second-round pick and a fourth-round pick next year, I'm making that deal immediately. Now, of course, it takes two to tango, and so if the Falcons are also of that same mindset where they say, well, we'll just take Karlaftis if they take Thibodeau or if someone else does, then yeah, maybe this is a harder deal to make, but I think that we are going to see some movement in this year's draft. I know we haven't seen a whole lot in the top 10 outside of, well, last year we saw a ton of movement inside the top 10. So we'll see how it goes. But then, so then my first pick is 107, and I also took Charles Cross. Randy, he yelled at me before, but here's the thing: we're doing what we would do to fix them, and Charles Cross is my offensive tackle 1 this year. So I don't think the teams are going to view him that way. I've seen a lot of mock drafts with him in the 20s, and that's fine. But I would take him at 107. So started there. George Karlaftis at 108 is where I went. I have Thibodeau ahead of him, but the difference isn't vast. So I just went with Karlaftis. I think pairing an edge rusher like Karlaftis, more of a power guy, he's a little bendier than people give him credit for. He's not the bendiest dude. With a guy like Azeez Ojulari, though, who is the I would say he improved on his bend last year. And then Quincy Roche, like I mentioned earlier, had a really good year. So that is one heck of a three-headed pass rush, and I'm going to roll with it. I think that, like Randy was saying earlier, edge rusher, you need to get like a go-to kind of dominant edge rusher, and we don't know if they have that yet. So why not just keep swinging? It's an important position.
And with Karlaftis, he can play either the 5 or the 3 tech in more of a 3-5 scheme, which is what they're known for. I don't know if the new coaching staff keeps that or whatever, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. Then I follow that up with the 40th overall pick, and you're saying, well, no, they have the 36th. I made another trade. I went crazy. So I got the 40th overall pick and a 2023 fifth for the 36th overall pick. So I moved back 4 spaces and added another piece in the 2023 draft. And the reason I went into this, I said I didn't think about the cap space. The reason I did this is because I think they need some ammo next year if they want to go up and get their quarterback. So adding as many 2023 picks as they possibly can makes some sense to me. So with the 40th overall pick, I drafted Travis Jones. I recently graded Travis Jones, and he is a first-round player for me. I know that's kind of a hot take, but I think that he is strong enough to play nose tackle, and I think that he is athletic and quick enough to play 3-tech in just a down, like a 4-3 scheme. So I think he's so scheme versatile that whatever scheme they choose to run, he will fit in. He is good. And then you get to go watch his Senior Bowl reps because I think they're on YouTube, and those are fun too. His bull rush is crazy. Then with the 43rd overall pick, which I added from the first trade, I went with Trey Mcbride. And I think we've mentioned Trey McBride. I think I've drafted him to another team, but with the 43rd overall pick, it makes some sense to me because I think that he will go in the second round. And I think they need a guy. Clearly, they need a tight end. We've talked through that, the Evan Ingram situation, Kyle Rudolph, but Trey McBride is kind of a do-it-all tight end that I think if we're saying they're trying to recreate the Bills, which I'm not fully convinced that that's what they're doing, but if we are, Trey McBride is fully capable of taking that Dawson Knox role and being just kind of a pass catcher downfield, which is what really worked for Josh Allen. So went with him there. Then didn't pick for 24 picks, which is crazy after that first few picks. But I went with Brian Asamoah, the linebacker out of Oklahoma, with the 67th overall pick. Also recently graded him. One hell of a tackler. He's a little undersized. I worry about his ability to get off blocks at times because I don't even know that he has the just I guess ability. I just don't know that he is going to be thick enough or strong enough to do that. But when you get him downhill and in space, he's one of the best tackling linebackers in this class. So went with him there. I don't even know if he'll be there. some of these mock draft simulators freak me out because I don't know where players are going to go based on those compared to where I rank them. But and the same thing here with Marquis Hayes, the guard from Oklahoma. I've seen a lot of like top of the second buzz for him, but he was there in every single mock that I did, so I just had to take him with the 81st overall pick. Like Randy, I'm adding multiple offensive linemen. I think that they have to do that in this draft. They have to take some swings, and taking two guys before they get out of day two makes some sense. Followed that up with the 110th overall pick with Tariq Wallen, the corner out of UTSA. Athletic freak. He's like 6'2", super long, but also a speed demon. Like I think day three makes some sense because of the level of competition, and he does have some technical issues. I think he gets caught reaching when he's in press, and he can get burnt that way. But I think as a developmental corner to add to that room of kind of promising guys, he makes some sense. Randy in his said, I don't think Calvin Austin will be here in the fifth. Well, he was for multiple times, and I kind of agree. I think he's a fourth round pick.
Yeah, and he might get picked in the fifth, but if there's a good chance he gets picked before this pick. It was more of my like take. I was like, man, I just don't.
I know.
Eh.
I know. I kind of cheated because he was there so often. I don't. Again, I struggle with these, and even the Calvin Austin fit, I don't know how it works because they kind of have a guy in Tony that could do a lot of what Calvin Austin can do, but I think and Calvin Austin's a small little guy. He's a tiny little speedster, but I think that there's a lot of potential in his game. I think he's quick enough to beat press coverage. I don't think he's got a strong enough frame, but I think his release is so clean that there's a chance that he develops into a really, really good NFL receiver.
Yeah.
There's also a chance he doesn't get a second contract. So that's a perfect day three pick. And then
Day three.
I finished off with another tiny little guy in Tyler Beatty, the running back out of Missouri. He's a guy I don't know if he'll be here either, but I think some teams might have issues with his size. Really good pass catching back. I think I wanted I did this a couple different ways. So the first two mocks I ran, I had at the 146, I actually had them taking Abram Smith, the Baylor running back, and having him be their kind of grinded out between the tackles runner to kind of free up Saquon into a role that makes a little bit more sense than doing that to him after all these injuries. But then I thought about it and I said, you know what? Let's just go get Tyler Beatty as like a situational back to start because I think Tyler Beatty can handle a workload if Saquon goes down in kind of like a Kenny Gainwell type role when Miles Sanders went down. So I think getting him in the fifth here makes some sense. So do you have any thoughts on any of these picks?
No. I mean, you went the same route at tight end, getting a replacement, kind of a do-it-all type guy, and then again, I think you just took shots at positions in need. The rest of it, and all have great potential to at least start for this team. And again, you get a shot at least a situational back, and again, not a replacement for Saquon, but maybe in the future you get someone to pair with him to get, close to what Saquon can give you.
Yeah. For what it's worth, I have Beatty as a top 6 running back in this class, and I think that there's a chance that or top seven. No, maybe top 6. I don't know. I don't have him pulled up, but but either way, I think there's a chance that he gets picked well before this. He's at the Senior Bowl. Not a lot of people were talking about him, but I think it's because he did everything that we already knew that he could do in the SEC, where he handles the workload. He's a really good pass catching back. He's a pretty good pass blocker for his size, and so I think he'll find a role. But yeah, outside of that, like you said, taking shots at positions of need, but also this isn't a 1-year fix, guys. The Giants are just broken top to bottom, so they're going to need to just add pieces like this. So, all right. Do you have any other thoughts? Do you think the Giants are able to improve their record at least in this first year of the new regime?
Yeah, I do, but it all hinges on health of this team, which has been an enormous issue for especially the offense for the last couple of years. But I think it really hinges on Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley play, and we'll see. And also just retooling the offensive line. I think we're going to get plus play for the defense, no matter who it is. I know they didn't get their defensive coordinator of choice, but they got Wink Martindale from the Ravens. He was let go, but that's why we keep saying we don't know what they're doing on defense, because Wink doesn't have a defensive scheme. Like, he doesn't run 4-3 or 3-4 necessarily. I think it's closer to a 3-4, I would say, but he really just runs a cover zero most of the time, but that's also because of what they had in Baltimore. So what is he going to run here is more of a question. I think it's a good transition for them to work a 3-4 defense that's focused more on blitzing, and that means you need a good corner too. So
yeah, for sure. All right. I think that'll do it for this episode. We talk our Marvel talk. We had it last week. We don't have any new news. However, I'm seeing the Batman next Saturday, so next Friday I'm going to be super stoked when we get to the Friday fix. But then the following week, hopefully Randy sees it between Saturday and Friday.
we'll see.
And maybe we can chat about the Batman, and we'll have some DC talk, which we've never had. I don't think.
Maybe just shitting on it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, in the middle of our Marvel talk. But Randy, do you want to decide live which team we're going to next, or do you want to think about it?
We'll think about it, because we're not doing the Panthers. That's all I can tell you.
No, absolutely not. I don't ever want to do the Panthers. We're gonna save the Panthers for when we run out of time, I think.
Yeah, we're not doing the Panthers. I would argue we're not.
Maybe
probably not doing the Falcons. They don't have money. They're not going to get.
Broncos are tough because we have to coordinate with Sweet probably. So
yes, we have to. We're doing that with Sweet for sure, and we already done Jets. So on to 11, and so on and so forth. Adam, shout out Adam. He's doing all right. He was just in an accident actually. If we're doing Eagles, he's going to be in our show. He said he's all good, so no big deal. But the car looks screwed.
I didn't see this. This is news.
Yeah.
I'll have to reach out to him. But
so reach out to him. But so and even Browns, we'd have to coordinate. We're definitely doing that with at least one of our friends. Most likely Sean, if he is available, of course. We're all kind of busy, so who knows, man?
Yeah, for sure. We'll figure it out though. We'll tweet something out.
It's gonna be a team with cap room and a pick. That's all I could tell you. Doesn't have to be all out of cap room. Doesn't have to be. It could be the most. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode of the Friday Fix. Then we will be back on Monday. I believe we're doing combine preview, running backs. And we're doing combine recap the following week, right? Combine's next week, right? Am I crazy?
So the combine's technically the 1st through the 7th.
So starting Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday to Monday, but it's kind of all ups and downs on when that stuff is. And obviously our next Monday show is the 28th and then the 7th. So I think it would make more sense to do a combine recap and a mock on the 7th. If we want to do, I think we're going to do running backs for sure on Monday, or, go over them, but maybe we can quickly sprinkle in a little bit of a combine preview or what we want to see, what we're looking at, kind of thing.
Yeah, we'll see. We like to talk a lot about these prospects. So,
what?
All right,
us?
Yeah, right. No. I know. All right. Well, that will do it for this episode. Make sure you guys go subscribe, like it wherever you're watching or listening. We appreciate all your support. And tune in on Monday night for the running backs episode. For Randy Hall, I'm Christian Williams. We'll talk to you guys next week. Later.